Hi everyone, this is Jessica Bradley Rushing. I'm posting a video right now because I think it's a quicker way to get across a lot of information from the Board of Selectmen meeting that I went to tonight. At the meeting tonight, the cluster housing bylaw written by the planning board was discussed, along with the possibility of the town exercising its first right of refusal and purchasing the golf course. Members of the planning board were there and they made a really thorough presentation explaining the cluster housing bylaw. The bylaw would enable the developer to maintain the 18-hole golf course, which would be leased back to the current owners for at least 3 years and remain under their management for that time. And it would allow 100 mostly 2-bedroom units to be built as a 55-plus condo community in the space around the course. I know a lot of people have reservations about cluster housing, but this bylaw is actually quite strict in what it would allow to go in. No extra units could be built over what would be allowed if that space were developed as single-family homes. And at least 50% of the space would have to be maintained as open space. Because this would be a condo community, the town would not be responsible for plowing, etc., so it would not further strain the resources of the DPW. And because it would be a 55-plus community, it would be very unlikely that there were any school-aged children living in the community, so it wouldn't add further strain to the school budgets either. The estimated recurring annual revenue from this community would be close to $1 million. As a parent who is looking at 11 positions being cut from our schools next year, and a town resident looking at several town buildings that need massive repair or replacement, including the police department, the fire department, the community center, the town hall, the council on aging, that kind of an additional revenue stream coming into town is really hard to pass up. The idea was proposed that the town could exercise its right of refusal in order to prevent the 55-plus condo community from going in around the course. In order to do that, the town would need to pay the exact cost that the developer is offering, which is $4.36 million. Over the 20-year bond that would be taken out in order to cover that cost, it would result in an actual expenditure of about $6.1 million after interest. That amount does not even take into consideration the annual operating or maintenance costs of the course or any improvements that are needed to the course, which the course owner was there and he stated those are needed and would also cost several million additional dollars as a one-time capital investment. In addition, the town would then lose the tax revenue that we currently get from the property, and we wouldn't have another stream of revenue coming in from the property. The Board of Selectmen voted to waive that right of refusal, which I think was a wise decision. We can't afford to make such a costly purchase that would not only not generate revenue for the town, but could possibly create additional expenses. So, the town won't be purchasing the course. And because the course is private property, the town cannot prevent it from being sold. So, if the cluster housing bylaw doesn't pass, it is very likely that the entire 160-acre parcel could be sold to a developer who would put in a different type of housing. That could be single-family homes. If 100 single-family homes were put in, the entire course would be carved up into 1-acre lots. All the open space would be lost, as no open space restrictions can be put on those types of developments. And the tax revenue generated from a single-family subdivision would not be enough to offset the additional costs to the town. Those single-family homes would likely be 3 or 4 bedroom homes, which would certainly mean more kids in the schools. The roads would be maintained by the DPW, which would mean more money needed for plowing and filling potholes. And the other potential option is that a developer could purchase that land and put in 40B housing. Right now, the town is at its cap of 10%, which is required for affordable housing as a percentage of what the housing is in the town. However, we have a census coming up in 2020, and we have several new housing developments going in that have no affordable component. So it is possible that Pembroke could be found to be under the 10% required cap. If that happens, we cannot prevent a 40B housing unit from being put in. So there's an additional possibility that the 160-acre course could be purchased by a developer who would put in 40B housing, and the town would not be able to refuse that. So, town meeting is coming up on May 14th. At the town meeting, the planning board will make a presentation about the zoning bylaw. I think it's important that the cluster housing bylaw be considered rationally as a $1 million revenue stream for the town, and as a way to maintain the golf course and the open space in that area. I personally think that that is in the best interests of the town, and I hope that if anybody has questions about it, that they'll reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer, to the best of my knowledge, any questions you might have. I hope this explains some stuff to you because I think it's important that town residents have as much information as possible going into town meeting about the articles that we're voting on, and it's not always easy to find this information out if you don't have the ability to attend the meetings or you don't watch, the hour-and-a-half long video of the whole entire meeting. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you at town meeting on May 14th.